You can see behind me an absolutely amazing collection. That's right, I'm still here in Brisbane. I'm still checking out some immaculate collections. And today, in this episode, I want to focus not just on collecting, but presentation. Because have a look at this. Absolutely stunning. So, stick around as we check out collection tour number 2 from the Arid Zine trip to Brisbane. I'm so excited because there are some amazing plants, many of which are incredibly rare. Let's get straight into it, shall we? Now, it's one thing to have a collection that is just off the charts with massive plants, many of which are incredibly rare. But the way that this collection has been organised is beyond immaculate. I don't want to spend too much time focusing on the finishings, but even the way that the garden beds have been surrounded by these timber sleepers just to accentuate these plants, it's remarkable. Now look at this. What a massive old beast of a Pachypodium that is. Clearly just loving life here in Brisbane. And then we've got some sort of Stenocereus just sending out arms all over the place, like some kind of mutant octopus. Big old Pachycereus marginatus, little flowers at the top, and some beautifully blue Pilosocereus. You can see these hairy areoles from which they flower. Really remarkable. Now I want to draw your attention to this. Look at the geometric shapes in this ferrocactus. Huge, clumping, beautiful thing. The spines so reduced as to be almost non-existent. Compare it then to its cousin, this huge Ferrocactus amorii. Clearly the opposite ends of the spectrum. Now the thing about this collection, everything's labelled. It's going to make my life a million times easier talking about any of these things, especially when there are plants that I don't recognise. Now talking about presentation, I love the geometry and the symmetry here. Now in itself, these two plants, these are fantastic pachycalled trees called Operculicaria pachypus. They come from Madagascar, and you can see they have this thick, ridgy, warty pachycalled trunk. Makes them really favoured by bonsai growers, but of course the nature of them as well. Also fantastic caudiciforms, but here in their pairing, in their pots, with that backdrop, that stark lighting, I just can't imagine a better way to present these two plants. Just a pair of massive Madagascan Pachypodiums in flower, casually loitering at the entrance to this space. And then here, like a centerpiece, a euphorbia, could be Euphorbia rossii. Clearly very, very old. The way that it catches the sun, it's about 11:30 in the morning here, and it just provides this amazing contrast against all the plants behind it. It's absolutely stunning. We've got some cycads, bold blue cycads. I don't know much about cycads, but there are some amazing specimens here. I'll share those a little bit later on in the video. Now here's a plant that I'm not particularly familiar with, Euphorbia barnardii. Never before seen one of these, but really interesting. Looks almost like it's emerging from a caudiciform base with these twin pronged arms. Magic specimen. And look at that again, beautifully labelled. Garden beds overflowing, brimming with everything. You can see crested Cleistocactus, yuccas, euphorbias, even tiny little agave white rhino just loitering there in the ground. Absolutely amazing. Now along here we've got an alleyway, again, of some of the most amazing specimen plants you could possibly imagine in a collection. Here's something interesting. This is not a plant that I'm overly familiar with, and again, easily labelled for identification, Euphorbia handiensis. And have a look at that fascinating white stem. Really interesting. It's clearly a form of corking going on as the plant ages, but unique, unlike anything I've ever seen in a Euphorbia before. I'm told this one is incredibly rare, and I'm tending to believe it because it's not something that I've noticed before. Even the more common plants like your Euphorbia lactea crest here, just in such insane volume, it overwhelms the senses. And then have a look at this. Euphorbia volkmanii, clearly a relative of your stellatas and the like, these interesting medusoid things, but the caudex on it, it's off the charts. And then here, a row of magical Madagascan Pachypodiums, culminating in this gracilius crossed with a densiflorum that is just bursting with flowers at the moment. Absolutely remarkable. Now these plants all show very significant signs of age and maturity. Some would tend to indicate that they've been lifted out of habitat, but I know these plants have been grown by a master grower up here in Brisbane, and the climate in this part of the world lends itself to really fantastic Pachypodium growth. I suspect that it almost emulates that of Madagascar, and these plants are decades and decades old. The old bloke who grew these has been around for many decades, and the plants are reflective of that. Over here, something that really catches my eye. We're still in the space of Pachypodiums, but look at this. A pair of Pachypodium namaquanum. Now these of course are South African Pachypodiums, winter growers, unlike the overwhelming majority of your Pachy's. And brilliantly, we've timed ourselves to see them in flower. Absolutely fascinating. Now, with two of them, it should be quite possible to pollinate these, and I can share with you exclusively the tool that is being used to pollinate them. Cactus spine. How good is that? And then it's almost easy when you've got such impressive plants to just overlook some of these other things that are in flower. Pachypodium gracilius, more gracilius, some brevical hybrids. Amazing. Absolutely remarkable, this collection of Pachypodiums. I've never seen anything even remotely like it before. Have a look at this. Pachypodium succulentum. Look at those delicate flowers. Very much unlike anything that you'll see amongst the rest of these plants. If you are enjoying this show, please, I implore you, hit like, hit subscribe, and if you go to that website on the screen, not only can you buy cool merch like the Arid Zine Caudex Club t-shirt, but you can check out the Patreon where there are bonus videos galore. And of course you can get your hands on the physical zine issue 2, which is out now. Anyway, let's get back to looking at this amazing and immaculately presented collection. Now a lot of these plants are absolutely massive and very mature, as you can see, but even the miniatures have been presented absolutely stunningly. We've got everything from huge Gymnocalyciums, Ariocarpus, some startling Mammillarias, up to some huge Eubelmanias. Have a look at this. Grafted, nonetheless quite stunning. Now this is an interesting plant. This is Ortegocactus mcdougalli, and it has this really interesting dusky green colour. But what you'll find is that in time it will actually develop these orange patches. It's not a sign of rust fungus, it's just a natural growth form. Fascinating. Have a look at this, variegated Ariocarpus fissuratus. One of the most stunning plants I reckon you're going to see around. And there's all sorts of variegates in here. Variegated stenocactus alongside variegated astrophytums. More of the same. Even a real big variegated astrophytum mysterious over here. Really quite remarkable. This is a real beauty. This is an Euphorbia gorgonus. And the thing that's fantastic about this, it's a member of the medusoid euphorbias. This one being old, it really exemplifies how these plants grow. They have a thickened caudex, you can see just here, and from that caudex come all these many arms, a little bit like the snakes emerging from Medusa's head, hence the name. Amazing. And of course, what collection would be complete without some massive Pachypodiums? Have a look at these. This one here is the one that most catches my eye. This is a Pachypodium cranesiana. So noted because unlike all the other Pachypodiums, this one has this fantastic, almost furry spination. They look like, I don't know, giant hairy caterpillars. Is that right? Whatever the case, it's clear that the presentation of these plants is second to none. Now here I think to get the full sense of what's going on, you need to get the wide shot, because this again speaks to not only a group of plants that has been grown with exceptional eye for detail, but a real sense of care in the Brisbane climate, because you can see this clear sheeting over the top, evidently installed to protect these plants, many of which are far more sensitive from the very heavy rains that Brisbane endures. And the end result is that these plants are growing like weeds. They are absolutely stunning. I know for a fact because at least one of the plants in this collection I sold Peter, the owner of this collection, and it has grown immaculately ever since it arrived here. Let me show you. The plant in question is this Dorstenia gigas, which originally came from my greenhouse. And when it arrived here, that swollen caudex base, I would guess no wider than 3 centimetres. Now that was about a year and a half ago. And now have a look at the thing. The base is as fat as an orange, and it's grown and grown and grown. So clearly, this Dorstenia gigas, like many of the plants around it, is very happy with this. Let me just point out a few of the other interesting plants growing here, the ones that really grab my attention. There's a fantastic example of Cereus spiralis, and you can see that mature growth. It's really getting into the spiral form. The way that it catches the soft light under the awning here, absolutely immaculate. There are some huge ferro-cactus, just casually lurking around amongst the many rarer plants, including this Euphorbia unispina. That's the biggest one I've ever seen. And as you can see, it is heavy with flowers at its crown. Those little maroon things at the top, they are absolutely laden with nectar, trying to attract some pollinators. Don't think it's got a pair to match with, so it'll probably go unrewarded. The other thing that strikes me about all of this is the complete absence of weeds. Very clear that this garden is meticulously cared for, although how exactly you get up the back to get the weeds out of the way, I'm not quite sure. Now have a look at this. This Euphorbia, it's massive. I'll take a step back so you can get a full sense of the size of it. Grows with a spiraling, twisting form, a little bit like that Cereus, but this is a more natural, non-mutant form. The thing that I think is really interesting, this thing is old enough now that its trunk has started to lignify. And what that means is that it's going strongly woody. And you can see this. But amazingly, that spiral pattern persists even in the trunk. It's really interesting. I've never seen anything quite like it before. And that's the joyful thing about looking at mature specimens. You start to see intricacies in their growth that you don't necessarily see in the juvenile form. And let's just take a moment to enjoy the sight of this massive adenium here. Absolute beast, been raised up. You can see that tangle of roots. It's really quite an immaculate specimen. Again, presented with a master's touch. The way that it catches the light, the way that it stands in contrast against the black fencing behind it. Everything about this place is so clearly, carefully considered and perfectly maintained. And then there are the crown jewels of the collection. I don't know much about them, but these are all magnificent and very old examples of blue-leafed cycads. Cycads fall outside my wheelhouse, but talking to Peter, the owner of this collection, these are the ones that bring him the most joy. He speaks about them, the chase for the 12 blue-leafed cycad species. How many exactly he has in his collection, I'm not quite sure. But that's what it all is, really. When we think about collecting, often it's about the chase, the hunt for the next species, the next plant, the more immaculate plant to add into our collections. And you can see, just by going on a little tour of this place, that this is a collection that is not only very well developed, but very clearly well loved and immaculately maintained. Now I wish we could have spent hours, if not days, looking at the minutiae of this amazing collection. But alas, I'm only here in Brisbane for a very short period of time and I still have places to go. I've got one more collection to visit and I reckon it's going to blow our minds completely, as if this place didn't already. So I implore you, check back in next Monday where we get to part 3 of Arid Zine Does Brisbane. I'm so excited to share it with you guys. Let's go.